Hello, everybody. You know who I am. At least I imagine you do. Then again, these predictions do often get an audience of people that do not know me. So, I'm Nemesis. That's my name. And I'm today joined with someone. Say hello.
Hi, I'm Cyber.
That's
I'm
him.
basically Nemesis's worst enemy.
That's true. And if you do not have context, that's going to be very confusing. A bit of a different thing today for the prediction, because Cyber here, do you want to tell them what you did to Star Wars and Kingdom Hearts?
For a few months, I basically murdered scaling for both on Discord, and was infamous for it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I haven't reversed all of my Star Wars damage yet.
uh, so yeah, that's why. I have not told anyone watching this what the matchup is, but you've probably seen the title and you've probably heard the news and you're probably looking at a big fat image of it on screen. Death Battle revealed the premiere of season Arct is Yoda versus King Mickey from Kingdom Hearts. So I thought it would be sensible to get the guy I know who knows the most about Star Wars and Kingdom Hearts scaling on, because I like to do different things every now and again.
I'm glad that you brought me on. Thanks.
Of course. I did say a while back that if it was this or Palpatine versus Xehanort, I would just get you on and you could do the work, because you know everything.
I am a bit miffled it wasn't Palpatine versus Xehanort, but there's still a chance for that.
There's still a chance.
Some down. Yeah.
I mean, maybe not this year, but it could happen next season. You don't know.
Perhaps.
Who do you want to talk about first? The Yaddles or the Bugs Bunny?
We can go for the guy who would get cucked by Bugs Bunny.
Okay, you start then.
So, King Mickey is a bit of an odd choice for being used in a versus match, but still viable. He's pretty much all scaling. He has barely any AP feats to his name. There is one feat interpreted from a video game in Kingdom Hearts called Dream Drop Distance as a possible AP feat, where he supposedly makes stars in the distance in basically what is supposed to be the Fantasia world. Problem is, it's like the sequence is in his dream, and it's a dreamscape being manipulated by pretty much an enemy. So it's like not even really a feat.
No,
at best you could say it was just a dream.
It's a dream. Imagine if they actually used that though.
The other thing regarding that people might get a bit miffled on is there's this whole notion that Kingdom Hearts characters are faster than infinite speed. In fact, it's
what?
So there's this timeless void that people like to bring up in Kingdom Hearts called the Realm of Darkness, and Mickey has moved there before. In fact, multiple characters have moved there. There's just one problem. It's not really timeless. There's this sequence in 0.2, one of the games for Kingdom Hearts. It's right before KH3, where Aqua is and if you don't know who that is, she's the only useful female character of the main cast.
I think I know who Aqua is.
No diss to the Kyrie fans, but she only started getting useful in the DLC, and then she immediately got cucked by the most recent rhythm game. So, yeah, she basically the rhythm game is just a look at her memories. You go through the entire all these sequences of the games in chronological order, kind of, but at the very end, when she's going to fight the main villain of the series, she gets possessed by Sora, and you basically play as Sora.
I remember watching a review of the game. You play the final battle as Sora, because fuck it.
Yeah, even though Sora should be completely out of the franchise for the moment, but can't have the main character gone for too long, I guess. So, the problem with that timeless void is that there's this sequence with Cinderella's world, and there's this clock tower in 0.2 showing that time does still flow there. There's also some scans from this thing called the Ultimania, which is Nomura's kind of crazy game journal that he does for each game, which I mean, Nomura contradicts himself all the time, but we'll get to that. Basically mentioning it's more like time is like in flux there. Like you don't really age if you're in there, and it seems like it's an eternity, but it's not really like a literal timeless void. If it was, then regular humans in Kingdom Hearts would be like infinite or higher in reaction speed because like Fawn or Heartless can move in there, and like normal humans can still react to them, even if they can't dodge them. They can still like react to them moving. So, I mean, that happened all the way back in like the very beginning of KH1. So like, it would be very, very weird for that to be a case.
I'll be honest, Cyber, I have never heard of infinite or immeasurable or anything like that speed for Kingdom Hearts. This is the first I've heard of it.
Oh, it's there's a whole meta for it on Discord.
Seriously?
Yeah, there is. I was surprised to hear the case, especially back in like 2020 and before then, like even 2019. There's been a meta for it. Like, Zehanort has these statements that say he transcends space and time, and it's stated more than once. Nomura even said it in an interview, so like, that's the immeasurable argument. The problem is people are ignoring the context for it. Like, the way, I'm not sure if you're aware of like the crazy time travel shenanigans that was brought in by Drop Distance. Basically, the whole shenanigans is you send your heart backwards in time, and it can basically do stuff in the past. Like even then, there's restrictions, and you're like formless when you do this kind of travel. That's where like the immeasurable speed arguments come from. Like it's not combatively, because you literally have no form while doing it.
That gave me a headache.
Hey, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Nomura. Nomura is Mr. Headache.
We're not doing.
Should be his real name.
I'm not doing a Nomura iceberg on this bloody channel.
Perhaps one day I'll convince you.
Maybe you should do one.
Perhaps. But yeah, like getting those two things out of the way, Mickey is not too hard to gauge where he should be. Going off the notion of attack potency, not necessarily his destructive capacity, he cleanly scales to like pretty much the rest of the like the good guys in KH3. They pretty much cleanly scale to Zeus at this point. Like Sora beats the Titans, who basically like scale somewhat to Zeus. They're able to restrain him in basically the very beginning of KH3. This was like a weakened Sora. So like the argument for this comes from Kingdom Hearts 2. Sora and basically like witnesses Zeus moving a bunch of stars in his image and Donald and Goofy as like thanks for saving Olympus pretty much every game. So
Jesus,
like,
I mean, I hope those stars weren't part of solar systems with like people that lived in those solar systems and their star just fucks off.
You know, that brings up the weird controversy of worlds in Kingdom Hearts, whether or not they're full-on universes or just like a planet with a surrounding star. I mean, frankly, it's probably both, given how contradictory Nomura is. Some quote-unquote worlds are established as being universes like Stitch, but some of them can't be, like the world from Little Mermaid. But that one is just established as being its planet, probably with a light source as well. But yeah, like moving the stars gets about large star.
Right.
Mickey cleanly scales to that. We could talk about the Universal stuff if you want.
I mean, I feel like there are a lot of people who are on board with like Universal Kingdom Hearts, so it's probably for the best to talk about it. What's your take on it? Because I don't even know where Universal Kingdom Hearts comes from.
Universal Kingdom Hearts is the thing I'm probably most known for on Discord when it comes to Kingdom Hearts, and my very controversial opinions on it. A lot of the arguments used for it are statements something along the lines of, there's this weapon called, well, you can pronounce it as the Keyblade or the X-Blade. I know I like to call it the X-Blade, even though that's not necessarily what it's called. But this weapon is like described in the basically one of the journals in the games as being made by a clash of high dimensional poles. And people like to take this statement and basically assume it means like higher dimensional energy, when that's not really implied at all. I mean, it's not even called higher dimensional, it's just high dimensional poles. It's kind of a bit of a flowery take, like a bit flowery language on there.
That sounds like some soft science techno babble.
It might be. It's basically in reference to like how light and darkness works in the verse, and like Nomura's big addiction with those two words because they're probably some of the most repeated words in the franchise. That and probably Keyblade. I mean, you'd probably kill yourself if you drank every time you heard that word
Oh no.
in the games. But basically, like the actual arguments for Universal, the best ones are scaling characters directly to Kingdom Hearts, which is basically like the god tier of the verse without actually. We don't really know if it's technically alive. It might have a will of its own, but it's like just think of it as like the origin of the cosmology. It like made everything, like all the universes or all the dimensional spaces where the worlds exist. They were made at once by this thing called Kingdom Hearts, and everyone covets it in the entire franchise. Like all the main villains have always.
And that's just uni.
Yeah, characters want that, like, and some characters might be able to scale to it. But the thing is, people usually just argue characters scale to it via clashing with that weapon I mentioned earlier, the X-Blade.
No.
That thing, like, think of it as like a remote control. Basically, like, the person who wields it can, like, insert their will upon Kingdom Hearts and have it do what they want. Xehanort just wants it for one thing. He wants to wipe everything clean. Like, think of just a reset on a universal scale or beyond. So he can basically restart everything. And that's where the argument usually comes from. It's either from scaling to the weapon or Kingdom Hearts itself. My main problem with like scaling everyone to the reset is it's pretty much flat out stated in the Japanese version that the reset will kill everyone. That's kind of why they seal up Kingdom Hearts after Xehanort is beat. So like, it's trying to scale something and someone to like a thing that's going to murder everyone, kamikaze style. Not really the best idea.
Whoa. Well, I mean, when you put it like that,
there is a sequence when fighting Xehanort with Sora at the end of KH3 where basically like all the energy from Kingdom Hearts like directly on it, like it's light, but the light from Kingdom Hearts. So the way Kingdom Hearts is depicted is think of a giant glowing like heart, like not an actual human heart shape, but like the generic heart shape in the sky.
I would have found a lot funnier if it was like just a beating human heart.
I mean, we're not trying to make this into basically Berserk, so
Silent Hill in Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, that's another good one. But basically, like, it's kind of weird. Xehanort rips the light off of Kingdom Hearts, causing it to turn kind of like purplish, almost like just black, and like rips off all the light, concentrates it in that blade, and shoots it at a beam at Sora. Like it one-shot Sora via the power of friendship, which is a literal amp in verse. Basically, fairy tale done correctly without being obnoxious. They take like Sora's able to overpower the beam and beat Xehanort. Like the way that you would go about scaling Mickey to this is that like when Sora got one shot by the beam, he didn't get popped. His body was still intact, and most importantly, his Keyblade was completely intact. There have been like a few instances where like enough physical force can break a Keyblade. So if Sora took a universal or higher beam from Xehanort and survived, he might downscale, which applies to like King Mickey because he scales to him somewhat. Mickey also did the best job in the DLC for KH3 against like Xehanort's clones, like his proxies.
Did you nearly say Palpatine?
I'm just getting Palpatine versus Xehanort vibes. I'm missing that already.
Oh man,
It's
gonna be all the same.
When that happens, when that happens, if it does, please bring me on again. that one is a ride with how much hacks those two have.
I would be happy to. We're getting all the APN speed out of the way today.
The other argument for Universal is a weird one. There's this game called Recoded, which is like the most forgotten of all the Kingdom Hearts games.
I don't know. There's the mobile game.
I mean, the mobile game kind of didn't go too obscure. KH3 forced people to dabble into it because there's like a whole sequence with the characters from the mobile game. It's like completely unexplained unless you look it up. And, like Xehanort got this like prelude when he was a kid. As part of that is like an expansion to the mobile game, and people even like looked into that. So I think Recode is probably more forgotten than the mobile game. To be honest,
honestly thought Kingdom Hearts Mobile was non-canon.
I'm referring to you're referring to Union X, right? Like
No, I'm
the
referring to Kingdom Hearts Mobile, the 2008 one.
2008 one. Pretty
With
sure that's the. It's if it's not VCast, every Kingdom Hearts game is pretty much canon, if I'm not mistaken. VCast is the only one that's not canon.
oh,
Um,
because
VCast was like this failed attempt at like recopying the first game. Oh no, I believe you're not. You are correct. The No, actually no. It's they basically mobile got updated and so mobile might be canon. But you are correct in that it's more forgotten than I stand corrected. You Nemesis has a point over me in cage lore.
woohoo! I have a reason to be in this video.
But anyway, like Recoded has this sequence where Sora's Heartless from the first game after he got split from him is like in this digital landscape that may be a universe given like statements in game. It's supposed to be like a digital recreation of the worlds they visited before. Um, Sora gets like this digital copy of him sent in there, skipping a lot of unnecessary Nomura shenanigans. Sora's like data copy fights the Heartless. He loses at the end. Mickey like allows him to beat it a little bit, not like via AP. Like they like weaken it, they nerf it. That's how they beat it. But the point is, so, like Data Sora was able to like tangle with the thing for quite a few minutes, so he should be somewhat relative. Um, that would scale to like regular Sora because it was just a copy of Sora's stats. At least by like the end of KH2. So the reason this thing is universal is that like it's trying to destroy the digital universe and the physical one, but like originally it was didn't destroy the barriers between the two, Buhan style. Like I don't know if you recall, but like, are you aware of like the Buhan screaming like supposedly
Yeah.
going to destroy the universe? Yeah, it was something like that. But then like he got stronger and he was just going to destroy it via physical force, as stated in game by both like Data, Sora, and Mickey.
Oh, he just got so angry he was just gonna punch the universe and the universe would just die.
Well, he just absorbed the things that they were just called bugs, like that like split off of his body that were like made to break the barrier. He absorbed it and like became mega amped. It's weird though. He absorbed the thing that originally came from him, and it just made him stronger.
Well, you know, how does what?
It's no Mora. Don't question it. Don't question it.
I've got a lot of questions.
I mean, you could go ahead if you want. I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability.
How? Why? Huh? Those are my questions.
Okay, so I guess the how is basically like because of its mixed with the digital system and trying to originally what it was doing was trying to like crash the digital systems. It was going to be something along the lines of it's like considered a virus within the digital scape, and that's probably what resulted in the creation of those bugs. Then it like just absorbs them over time after you beat the bugs. As for why, I'm assuming it's just because of its malicious nature. Like most Heartless kind of have this like innate malicious nature to them. Doesn't necessarily mean they're like purely evil. It's just part of their whole go-to.
Oh. Well then. So I mean, if that's the argument for Universal Kingdom Hearts, where would you generally place them along the spectrum of like planet to Universal?
At the very minimum, the large star thing I brought up for Zeus, and I think you can argue them as Universal as a somewhat decent high-end, supported by the fact that characters can upscale from the Heartless that was going to destroy the physical universe, and then like using the Sora surviving the beam as like a supporting feat.
Alright, so who wins Xehanort versus your watch?
Oh, oh boy.
Or
Are
did
you aware of my recent insanity when it comes to Bleach?
I've had to watch it go down.
I mean,
Do they
if you
both-
want me
do
to
they-
give the quick input for that.
Did they both lose to
For the
Eren
viewers.
Yeager?
Oh, no, we're not talking about that. That's a separate video. You are not getting that for free for this one.
Oh.
Okay, so I can go over to the Bleach insanity really quick. So, the Bleach novels, Can't Fear Your Own World and Spirits Be With You, basically those novels like have been somewhat confirmed over time to be canon, and they completely ruin any semblance of like rational bleach scaling. Open the door for universal bleach. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Versus Battle Wiki had them at that level for a
I am
while before
aware.
it got
I
ripped out.
I had to witness as Ichigo was placed on the same pedestal as Goku.
It was crazy, but like I'm not too sure myself now what I buy. I'm waiting for like the official translation for the third novel because like there's three different translations for one page that decide everything. Literally,
Oh
it's
my
one
god.
sentence. One sentence decides whether or not the verse is like stuck at planet level or is universal.
Didn't Phantom recalc the planet level feat though?
Not that I'm aware. Are you referring to the lifting of the like the palace?
Yeah.
Because the planet level feat I use is like the
Oh,
first
okay.
movie has like some confirmation to being canon. There's like a sequence where two planets, the Soul Society and Earth, are going to collide, and then like energy is used from like a bunch of souls to create explosions that push the planets backward. Some characters like upscale from it. That's where I usually get planetary bleach from.
All right, that makes sense then. Well,
But
I
yeah, as
mean,
to who wins that matchup, no comment for the time being. I would figure maybe Xehanort has some way to bullcrap himself out of that, but it would not be an easy fight.
well, I mean, hey, I make that your community death battle. Anyway, so
I might.
we went through that quickly. So that is a segue to speed. How fast? Because I have not talked to you about Kingdom Hearts speed since you said just roughly FTL. That's about it.
That was my old like stance on it because like there was this statement from Union X where characters cannot go faster than the speed of light or their flesh will rip off. Which I tend like it was such a weird statement, but like that and there was like these two moves that you needed to like one of the moves in Birth by Sleep, Photon Charge, is basically like this special ability you activate that allows you to move exactly at the speed of light. It's like as stated in one of the guides. And then there's like this move that allows Sora to like blitz a laser that's confirmed to be light and acts like light from a Heartless in page 3. The problem is like the way it plays out is like he'll open up portals and turn himself into like a beam. The beam will travel through the portals, and that's how he blitzes it. So he has to change his physiology temporarily to move faster
Wow.
than the beam.
So where do you have
That's
them now,
why I
though?
kind of like, yeah, that's why I kind of had them in like FTL, but I'm okay with MFTL now on like reanalyzing a lot of stuff. Main thing comes from Roxas. Roxas moving, like Roxas has this sequence in Cage 3 where like his heart leaves Sora's body. Uh, Basically, like think of a heart as like the abstract essence of the being, not necessarily conceptual. There is a statement of the heart being conceptual, but that actually turned out to be basically a mistranslation. The Japanese version of the game has no mention of it
Oh,
being conceptual in that sequence.
damn it. I can't
But yeah,
argue out of Versal, Sora, and Mickey.
I would rather that you not. Uh, like the heart ends up firing from Sora's like where Roxas was being contained, basically his essence. It flies off to a body that had been made for Roxas. He takes over the body and then immediately flies back down. This all happens in like 2 seconds. Well, 5 seconds really for like the entire trip. The return trip is about 2 seconds. And the distance is at least the distance of two solar systems or a solar system. It gets really high. I've seen calcs for it about 66 million times the speed of light.
I mean, I want to say that's really high, but then I've been in the community long enough to know that that's, like kind of fast.
I mean, we could go back on the infinite thing, but
Oh,
I'd rather
please.
not.
I don't like the
You
idea
could
of.
argue the speed. You could argue the speed is way higher than just 66 million. The problem is we don't know exactly the distance of the world he traveled through to. This is just assuming the world is like literally right next to one he was on. It could have been way further. If that's the case, I could see it getting possibly trillions, quadrillions. It depends. Um, the other thing for speed is basically like Sora like basically has this feat of reacting in Remind to beams of light that he fired from his own Keyblade that like reflect off of these things that, while they're not flat out stated to be stars, they're kind of implied to be like either stars or like balls of light in this like open like space. I've seen it calced anywhere from like high end rel to like a few, maybe 100 times the speed of light. It's not the best feat. The best feat will always be Roxas, but I find it to be consistent enough.
I feel like
it's consistent with. Go ahead.
I feel like they won't use the Roxas thing in the episode. Like they might buy it in the research, but in the actual episode itself, I feel like that's not something they would use.
I feel like that might be the case. If they do use it, that would be pleasantly surprising.
Yeah, I just because like with Star Wars, I feel like they're gonna cap it at the Obi-Wan nanoseconds thing.
Oh, definitely. I definitely think that's probably where they're gonna put Yoda. Maybe they might say he'd like vaguely like massively upscale.
It probably does.
They might. Speaking of, you want to transition to Star Wars for a moment?
Yeah, for probably most of the remainder of the video, because we've pretty much run through the Kingdom Hearts stuff that's relevant. Well, until we get to hacks, but
so for Star Wars, Yoda's stats. Yoda's also kind of like in the same position as Mickey. He's kind of an AP character, not really too much of a DC. He does have a few interesting DC feats in the 2003 Clone Wars miniseries. And he also does have one very... It's kind of like this weird sequence where he supposedly lift a mountain or a mountain-like entity in canon. The current canon anyway, but he was like amped by the Force in that sequence, more so than he normally would be, but so I'm not really going to bring it up. It's kind of a pointless feat to bring up anyway. The cleanest scaling for AP for Yoda would just be to scale him either to Sidious or whatever's currently established for like Obi-Wan that's acceptable. For Sidious, Palpatine specifically, there's like one feat in general that's very contentious. He has this feat from the Plagueis novel where he supposedly moves stars with telekinesis. The problem is you could make the argument the sequence is in his head, the way that like the dialogue is worded. They actually re-explore the same sequence later on in the book, and there is no constellation mentioned at all or any stars moving. So it's debatable whether he did not or he did move stars. If he did, it's like the same thing as the Zeus thing. It would get like large star based on the amount of stars he would have had to move. Yoda scales to that cleanly because he's pretty much Sidious' equal in episode 3. You could maybe argue Sidious was slightly... It doesn't matter. The point is that they're almost neck-to-neck relative at that point. And then, of course, anything you accept for Obi-Wan would automatically transfer over to Yoda by the fact that Yoda was the strongest of the Jedis.
How many Jedi in Legends are stronger than Yoda?
I mean, they would come after Yoda. Like, Luke obviously surpassed him. And there's plenty of Jedi potentially within the new Jedi Order after Yoda that did, but up until like episode 3, you'd be hard pressed to really prove that there's a Jedi stronger than him. You could probably make some arguments for characters in like the Old Republic MMO, like might scale to Vitiate. That brings up a whole like separate like debacle in the Star Wars community, like Sidious versus Vitiate. There's 2 Sith Emperors. Which one is the strongest? Not like really relevant for
there are other matchup. Sith as well who people might consider on the same level, but
the problem is with that those 2 have the most statements of being the strongest Sith. Period. There are a few other Sith that kind of like bypass this, like Exar Kun, his soul. Later on, when they like Luke interacts with it, he mentions that it's like on par with Sidious. Like, not even like episode 3 Sidious, Dark Empire Sidious in Legends that's like longer than like Sidious was ever before. So like that's like the one exception I can think of off the top of my head besides Vitiate. There might be more, but you could probably count them on your hand.
So
it wouldn't be that many.
So where does Darth Nihilus get?
Darth Nihilus is so weird. People like to argue that his attack potency scales to his Force drain, but that's not really how his Force drain works. His Force drain is like hacks that ruins a planet by ripping the Force out of it, and like rips the Force out of the. He's a wound in the Force. In basically Knights of the Old Republic, he's like an anomaly. Really shouldn't be scaling anyone to his like drain abilities in the first place. When it comes to his physicality, he doesn't really have too many like feats to scale off of. You could probably get planet or stuff around there, but like his Force Strain is an ability kind of unique to him only.
I'm just kind of imagining someone like figuring out the mass of a midichlorian and then just saying that he pulled all the midichlorians out and using that to calculate his Force Strain's power. I don't know why, but I can see someone doing that.
Hey, power to them if they can calc that.
Then, like, what the fuck?
I had to go through a very giant calc for like Hercules in Kingdom Hearts 3, tossing basically the titans at the end. It was so bad that like even the guy who usually asked for like calc evaluations, named as Speedy, kind of basically said, "Not right now. It was just way too long."
How is it that long?
I can send it to you later. It's like 4 pages.
Oh my god! Pure, what the fuck?
Not even with scans, like not even scans to clutter it, just the numbers. It goes on for like 4 pages.
When the calc is bigger than Big Speedy.
But yeah. Beyond that, for scaling for Yoda's AP, we could briefly talk if you want about the controversy of some of the Star Wars feats. There's like Jarl, who's like the most controversial. If you guys don't know, Jarl is basically this guy who supposedly contained the energies of a bomb that was going to destroy a planet.
In Obi-Wan vs. Kakashi.
Mm-hmm. The problem is, there's 2 different schools of interpretation for his feat. He either did contain them, therefore he scales, or 2, it's basically the equivalent of a guy defusing a bomb by cutting its wires. Which, I mean, pretty sure everyone here would agree it's not really an attack potency kind of thing. It is debatable. There are contradictory statements in guides when it comes to that feat. Heck, even some guides that say they wasn't going to destroy the planet, but rather just split it in 2, like a clean cut. I mean, that would still be small.
I think that was still calc to small plan anyway.
Yeah, but the point is they don't all match with each other. But that's not really the fault of that feat specifically. That's the fault of Star Wars just being so big as it is. It has so many guides that contradict each other. I guess it's the one thing that you can maybe make the argument was a good thing that Legends eventually finished, that more material wasn't added to create more contradictions. But I mean, I don't think that justifies its end, but that's a topic for another day. Yeah, I at best I see him in that star ranges. You could maybe support this with stuff like basically Sidious scaling like above a character named Naga Sadao, who is like an ancient Sith who used his meditation ships and his combination with the Force to detonate stars. There are like guidebooks that hint at being like more of a chain reaction thing where like he'll destabilize the star, which causes its detonation. But I feel like that might be getting a bit too in the nitpicky zone. So like episode 3 Sidious would probably scale to that via numerous statements of being like the strongest Sith, even up to that point. Yeah, that's probably the best you can do for Yoda's AP.
And in terms of speed, it would just be the Obi-Wan thing, but there's probably something. There's probably still
if you wanted to go higher, there is the meme argument for like Han Solo's feat in Episode 7. It gets like 14,000 times the speed of light.
Yeah, that scene, oh my god. He's talking about the thing where Han hyperdrives into Starkiller Base and then gets out of it before he hits the ground somehow.
It's such a weird feat.
It's so stupid.
There is the very popular, at least when it comes to like Versus-centric and other sites, usage of like the feat of like Sidious's soul after Episode 6 like goes from basically Endor to a planet called Biss in a short time frame. That's been calced at like several times the speed of light. The problem is that was retconned by a guide as him just using like a very nerfed version of like Force Storm to teleport himself across like space, so it's not really a speed feat anymore. The best you could probably go with is like if you buy the telekinesis thing from the Plagueis novel and you argue that telekinesis can scale to like your reaction speed, just like going off with a low ball for the moving of the stars, you can get that thing all the way up to like 2 million times the speed of light. Maybe I've even seen a calc for it for like being 15 million times the speed of light. So at that point, like if we use their high end speed arguments, there would be pretty much no blitz.
Huh. Well, I mean that's cool to know. Is there like a feat in Kingdom Hearts that would put them at planetary, like just planetary.
Yes, there is. There's a feat in Remind, which is the DLC for the third game, where Xehanort like has this weird sequence of opening up these keyholes to drop these asteroids on Sora and Kairi. Weirdly enough, the moon is moving in the background too. Originally, I thought it was just like a visual effect, but no, it like is accelerating forward when he opens up the Keyblade holes. Basically the accepted premise is he's using his telekinesis to move the moon. We do know that Xehanort does have telekinesis, as he uses this on like characters before and when moving a bunch of Keyblades against them as well. So, I mean, I guess he was just trying to be very flashy, but the kinetic energy for that is like large planet level.
So, I'm starting to form like a picture in my head of what they could use in the episode. I feel like, because Death Battle really likes to make battles look close, regardless of if they are or not, I feel like they're probably either going to go with both of the planetary things or both of the star-moving things, or if they just really want to push in the fact that Mickey wins, they're going to give him the star-moving from Zeus, but then tell Yoda to get fucked.
At that point, we could probably bring up some hacks. Yoda, weirdly enough, is the opposite of Sidious. Where Sidious has like a mountain of hacks to his name, Yoda has some established hacks and statements that he knows a lot of Jedi techniques, but never really shows them. He's basically kind of... I would not be too surprised if he just got the Obi-Wan treatment of like rundown of abilities. Maybe a few more things like Force of Valor, which could be used for like amping himself, or force battle, like the battle meditation technique. But I really don't see Yoda getting too many like esoteric or abstract abilities that like aren't already displayed for Obi-Wan. There is one thing that he brings to the table that it's debatable if Mickey could even resist, which is mind hacks. I guess that transitions into Mickey. Mickey's like one thing that he's lacking from this that could cost him the fight is like a resistance to mind hacks. You could make an argument that he's able to move in the realm of darkness, and there's statements that thing kind of like erodes your mind, but that's over time. Yoda's like mental techniques would not be over time; they would be immediate. So he could use that to potentially mess Mickey's game plan, or I mean, if he were to go super out of character, possibly even order him to stab himself with a Keyblade or something. But
kill yourself, you will.
I mean, that does, however, bring the flip side. Yoda really has no resistance to Mickey's, I mean, I guess, go-to ability, which is the Stopsa, the basically ability to stop time within a certain range, and that would really screw Yoda over in this fight.
Well,
so they both kind of have two win cons on each, like one win con each that kind of ruins everything the other opponent brings, which kind of like segues back into like who has the better stats. I feel,
which would be Mickey generally.
Generally, yeah. Even if with the higher end arguments, it would be Mickey.
Yeah, well, because Mickey's higher end arguments are universal, and Yoda's higher end arguments are not scaling to the Bedlam spirits or anything.
There is no way to get him to the Bedlam spirits.
People still try to. I've still seen it.
Yeah, that's surprising in the community. There's flat out statements that like even Sidious was like inferior to the Sun. And the Sun, okay, you could make the argument that the Sun is stronger than the Bedlam in Legends. There is this continuity book called Supernatural Encounters. It's like this book that was released pretty much at the end of Legends like being a thing. There's actually an expanded version being released right now. It's debatably canon, but the guy who wrote it had permission from like everything related to Lucas before the Disney buyout. He just never got the chance to publish before then. It was canceled, and he had to basically just post it online. What it is basically this novella that would like encompass all of Star Wars history, and it hard retcons a lot of stuff. It like makes it so that the Bedlam spirits are like above Universal, and that basically like the ones are like nerfed versions of the Bedlam who became more like human like entities when they entered the material universe. So just going off that novel alone, the ones have no way to scale to the Bedlam.
I still hear the argument is, and I find this argument so funny. Anakin was the chosen one, so he was supposed to get stronger than everything in the entire verse, including the Bedlam spirits, and Yoda somehow still scales above that, even though Yoda's scaling above that would contradict him being the strongest thing. So,
There's even some material in Legends or other continuities within Star Wars that would indicate that maybe Vader might even be above Yoda. So, I mean, it wouldn't even matter at the end. Even if we go with this weird argument, like Yoda would still not scale. But it creates this I guess you could make the argument. Well, Vader still scales to Sidious at some point. So wouldn't that create the loop? You could make the argument that Yoda just was vastly weaker than Sidious in Episode 6. So entertaining this wank. And I usually don't like to bring out that word that much now these days, but can't really avoid using that word for something like that.
What else are you going to call this?
Just a day in the life of Cyber.
That sounds about right,
I guess. The other hacks that Mickey really brings to the table isn't too much. There's the light that can be used from the Keyblade. I mean, there are a lot of spells available to Kingdom Hearts characters. There's even an existence erasure spell, but it's based off of probability. Just called Warp. You could contribute that to gameplay mechanics because no character ever uses that spell in canon whatsoever. Mickey also would be bringing something along the lines of the conceptual arguments for Kingdom Hearts, and there are also conceptual arguments for Star Wars, but for both, I really don't buy them, and even if they did exist, it really wouldn't apply to either of these characters. At best, you could say that Mickey's heart is his abstract essence, and in order to truly kill him, you would have to destroy it. Although you can still destroy the body in Kingdom Hearts, and the heart wouldn't be really able to do anything. So I don't really think that changes that matchup that much anyway. I just feel like Mickey brings too much to the table with his time manipulation and his stats.
Yeah, I feel like even if Mickey did not have his own hacks, Yoda just having this one hacks wouldn't be enough to get him a win due to the way Death Battle goes about determining the winner. Because it's who wins most often, and would it really be fair to argue that more often than not, Yoda would jump immediately to manipulating Mickey's mind before Mickey clobbers him over the head with a really big key?
I mean, Yoda maybe does have one more win con.
What?
He
Share with the class.
He can maybe force Mickey into a ketamine addiction.
God damn it.
But I'm pretty sure that Disney says no to drugs, so yeah, that probably wouldn't fly.
Someone could argue. Could you argue organ crushing? Because I know that they brought that up for Obi-Wan.
You could, but you could also make the argument: why would Mickey's inner organs be so much less durable than basically his skin?
Right. Yeah. that would make sense too. That's why Jotaro does not beat Kenshiro.
I do know that the argument of internal attacks being a kind of like a version of durability negation is a contentious topic, but I really don't think it would matter too much in this kind of a fight, especially with how the heart works internally, and its position within the body in Kingdom Hearts.
I was just gonna say that it's not something that I do never recall a Jedi or anyone using an organ crush on someone in Star Wars while they're also fighting them and they're moving around at the speed of light.
I mean, you could argue that it's more so their reaction / very brief combat speed in a few meters, but yeah, you could maybe there is maybe a sequence from the Return, either from the Return of the Jedi novelization or the Revenge of the Sith novelization where something like that is done, but it really wouldn't help in this fight. The low end for Mickey is light speed. There's a feat of just base Sora dodging a construction laser that's depicted as being light speed in the Monsters Inc. world.
Oh,
in KH3.
The Monsters Inc. world.
Yeah.
Why did I find that so funny?
That sequence is pretty fun in general.
I really
I
need to
mean,
play
even
Kingdom Hearts.
Ursula. Yeah, Ursula reacts to a beam of light from Sora's Keyblade as well.
Is that
And
the
while
beam that
Sora's like,
they calced at FTL in Sora versus
yeah,
Pit?
mm-hmm,
Oh,
pretty much. Even if you want to argue FTL is like slightly inflated for the beam, it should still be about 1.1 or 1.2 times the speed of light when it fires to the moon in the first game. So, yeah, Ursula would also be like high end relativistic to light speed, and Mickey like massively upscales from Ursula.
you did say something that reminded me. Does Yoda have like any sort of impressive precog?
Actually, yes, precog could be a way to deal with this. The thing with Jedi is using precog mid combat is kind of inconsistent in Legends on how good it is. It really depends upon the character. Yoda might actually have a sequence of being able to do this, if I recall, in his fight with Dooku in one of the novels. But I don't feel like it would really change the fight too much if the opponent is so much higher than them in stats.
That makes
Um,
sense. I was
if,
thinking of
if Yoda
the
was
revenge thing.
given, if Yoda was given any level of precog, like before the fight started, sure. But like how Death Battle works, I don't
Yeah.
really think that would happen.
What's the most impressive feat of precognition in Legends? Because the only thing I can think of is the Obi-Wan thing in Revenge of the Sith.
There's actually a feat of a precog feat of basically seeing. This wasn't even Force Vision. There's like usually the most impressive thing are Force Visions. There's character like really old Republic area that like had a precognition feat of like seeing events hours to maybe. There was even a one statement that could be interpreted as the way it was done, like maybe a whole year worth. But like it's I don't know. I feel that's like really inconsistent for other Jedi. There's really nothing on that level, at least consistently. And Yoda has never done anything like that with like the material we have from him available.
That makes sense. So there is one last question. Do you agree with Obi-Wan versus Kakashi?
Oh my, oh my. I guess I should mention I don't like a certain one or two feats in Obi-Wan Kakashi addressed for Obi-Wan.
You've
There's
addressed
like
one of them.
yeah, there's the ship moving feat is another that basically this character is massively amped at the time because he's being basically attuned better to the force of other force wielders, and this technique is described as increasing their power exponentially, not linearly. After he performs this feat, he's pretty much dead. His body was even described in the like a novelization as being melting from overexerting himself. So I'm not sure how you would even be able to scale Obi-Wan to this.
Why did my mind
There's
jump
also the
there?
whole. Oh, go ahead.
He just vored a bunch of Jedi and then melted. That's what I'm
There's
thinking
also
in my head.
there's also the comparison to Kip Duran, which I mean I would be fine with Obi-Wan getting in the petaton ranges, based off like scaling this off the statement in one of the novels that like a Jedi fights this creature described as being like able to split a planet in half, and there is actually a chain of scaling for Obi-Wan to scale to this character. It's if you want to go read it for yourself, it's the second novel for the Force Unleashed, specifically Force Unleashed 2. But in regards to the Kip feat that was mentioned, there really is no clean scaling chain besides Luke's one statement that's kind of vague and immediately contradicted afterwards.
Yeah, I don't like that the using that because the statement is just this is the strongest Force presence he's felt since Obi-Wan and Yoda, which just means that no one in between Kip and Obi-Wan and Yoda was as strong as Kip. That's all it means, really.
There's also, like for Kakashi specifically, you could argue way higher than they did. I won't argue for too high. There is some debatable stuff for island level or small country at best, like for Kakashi's physicals.
I mean, they put him at city level.
Wasn't it mountain level?
No.
From
They say mountain busting, but the calc that they used from Versus Wiki is city level. It's like 18 megatons.
I see. Oh yeah, you could probably get the mountain bust higher, but yeah, Kakashi does have some higher end scaling. He does have some scaling to the Sonin, at least beforehand. Um, and in fact, my biggest gripe with the episode has always been how Genjutsu was handled. Um, in comparison, I'm at least glad that like the WinCon really didn't have to do with Obi-Wan trying to mind hex Kakashi, because the thing that most people don't realize is that Sharingan acts as like a natural resistance to mind hex, and then like every version of the Sharingan that's like above the base version basically adds more resistance. In this case, Kakashi has the Mangekyo, which would be like 2 layers of resistance, or the Mangekyo if you want to pronounce it that way. Um, I do kind of agree with the result. I find that Kamui would be a very good way to deal with Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan should be somewhat relative in speed and just has like way higher AP. One attack from him should kill him pretty quickly. Kakashi, if he were to open up with Kamui at the very beginning, I could see a Kakashi win. Generally, I would say the matchup is kind of like, I would give it a percentage. I'd probably say Obi-Wan wins 60, Kakashi wins 40.
Ooh, that's pretty close.
It really depends on like him starting with the Kamui. I don't think Obi-Wan's fast enough to blitz. I really don't think the precog would be that much helpful when dealing with the Kamui anyway, if Kakashi opens up with it, or if he opens enough early with it.
Oh,
If we give DMS to Kakashi, the double eye that he had at the very end, I don't really see Obi-Wan winning.
oh, the
You can maybe
fucking
make some argument,
the Susanoo
maybe
thing.
for like a low. Yeah, the Susanoo thing, because that thing has like spatial manipulation with its attacks at neg durability. That's like how Kakashi injured Kaguya. That would just pop.
Yeah.
We've
Oh
had the
man.
point.
But obviously they didn't give him that. Although they did say that if he had it, it wouldn't change the result, which is the thing that I am most not sure on in that episode.
Yeah, I can't really say I agree with that. Even if you argue it doesn't scale to Kaguya, the fact is it was like Kakashi was fast enough to tag Kaguya at one point. So you could argue that it enhanced his speed to the point he can keep up with her. She is fast enough to keep up with Naruto, who basically upscales above like Raikage dodge, and Phantom got the like that feat to like 11 times the speed of light.
How did they do
I
that?
really don't. How did Phantom do that?
Yeah.
So Phantom took the anime sequence of that punch. I'm not sure if you're aware of the controversy with that punch, because people have gotten it to like 70 times the speed of light
Of course.
off the manga, but like, yeah, but it was like really odd. They took like a narrative comparison of a scene to try and justify a distance, which, I mean, that doesn't exist in the actual sequence. They tried to like compare it to Minato dodging the Raikage, and they were just not in the same area. You can't just use a narrative comparison to argue a certain like measurement. That just does not work. That's basically calc stacking in a way. I mean, not even calc stacking. It's just
Wrong.
too big of a guess. Yeah. So I feel like Phantom doesn't even really use like anything that's inflated. Just the minimum distance Naruto moved, and the distance from the punch to his face when it happened, and of course using the data book statement that the Raikage was traveling at the speed of light.
Right.
I should mention the English version is mistranslated. It's the English version says near, like the fan translation says near the speed of light. The Japanese raw, through multiple translations I've seen, not even machine translations from just like people who naturally speak the language and good with translations, have all consistently gone in that it says like exactly at the speed of light. There's like nothing that says near. So that's what makes the feat like 11 times the speed of light.
I don't think I'll ever trust an English translation for Naruto after Omnipotent Kakashi.
I mean, Omnipotent Kakashi is one. I feel a lot of people have issues with the data books that really are not substantiated. Omnipotent Kakashi, sure, but Omnipotent can also mean other things. Usually I see like Tamari blowing away the universe, even though that's like a mistranslation. It doesn't say universe, and the context for that sequence, like that statement, is not so much like physically blowing away, but like blowing away as in like she blows away the competition, like that kind of a thing. Like she surprises everyone. Like that kind of a meaning of the word. She like blows away society or blows away the world, but not like physically.
Wow.
It is a weird statement, but Kishimoto is like that with some of his stuff. A lot of people tend to like have this weird thing of the data book. The data book has like 2 kinds of text. There's the black hype text that hypes up a character, and then there's the lore text. People usually just dismiss the whole data book because the hype text are hyperbolic, but they're meant to be hyperbolic. They're literally hype text.
Oh. Well, I think
Yeah,
we've gone over pretty much everything for Mickey and Yaddle. So,
yeah, I would say Yoda maybe wins 20% if I'm being generous with a mind hack, but I think King Mickey wins pretty much 80%.
oh, I'm being generous. Yoda might win if he's really fucking lucky.
Yeah, he
uh,
just needs to open with mind hacks. Pretty much is really the only way I would justify him winning.
I mean, yeah. That's actually making me think now. You said that with like, I'm going back to the Naruto thing. You said that with every like version of the Sharingan, it adds more resistance. Can't they still Genjutsu Sharingan users?
They can, but Itachi is an anomaly. Like Genjutsu users can be Genjutsu, but like I would say that the quality of a Genjutsu and like its power as well to mess with the mind also differs. Mind hacks in Naruto is just weird because like mind hacks is not treated as all mind hacks being equal. They range in their ability and power, and that's why there's also layers of resistance in the verse as well.
Ah, so you wouldn't say it could get past resistance to mind hacks in other verses.
It could potentially, but it'd be very hard to gauge it. There is stuff like there's just stuff outright negging the mind hacks in general. You don't even need a resistance. It depends on like how it works. For example, like some Genjutsu users use ocular right through the eye. Like they're like someone like Kabuto will close his eyes or blind himself to literally not be affected. There are Genjutsu that bypass that, like the Aspul Izanami, but sorry, I'm not gonna defend that one. That was an asshole. It was not even foreshadow. Like we knew it was coming, but I don't think that's like proper foreshadowing for it. Plus, there's just too many jutsu like associated to Uchiha already.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts on the Genjutsu issue.
I was just wondering if it's really okay to say like Obi-Wan and Hiei could resist the Genjutsu from Sasuke and Kakashi.
Hiei, I don't think so too much. Hiei does resist illusions, but I don't think there's anything on the level of like what Sasuke brings to the table. For Obi-Wan, I could see it because of like how like Jedi when they mind hacks like have mind hacks available, it kind of like works the other way too. The Force kind of gives them that level of resistance to it. So I could actually buy Obi-Wan more resisting Genjutsu than I could Hiei.
I don't know why, I'm just imagining now a scene in the death battle where Yoda does a Genjutsu on Mickey, and it's like the scene in Obi-Wan vs. Kakashi when Obi-Wan gets Genjutsu'd, but instead of Darth Vader, it's like Bugs Bunny with a carrot about to stab Mickey. I don't know why, I'm just imagining that in my head now.
Okay, if that's in there, I'll give you $3 for that.
Three whole dollars.
I might do 5 because that would be funny. That would be funny.
That'd be amazing. Yeah, something dark. But then I guess like what would Yoda do? Stab Mickey with his lightsaber and do nothing?
If they somehow got it, okay, I doubt they would ever do it. But if they did the ketamine joke somehow, I don't know what I would do. I'd probably obey anything Phantom said for a week. Not gonna lie.
You realize that's on video now.
Hey, if Phantom's watching, he has record. A record.
Like in the fight or like anywhere in the episode?
Anywhere in the episode, as long as in the episode itself.
Oh boy. Now I'm imagining they could. They did bring and put a lot of memes into the last season. So
Still, I would be surprised if that meme got into this one, considering its origin.
I feel like if anything, it'll just be like in the sidebar, like just has a ketamine addiction.
That'd be funny. That would be worth that punishment. I'm not kidding.
Potential ketamine abuser. I'm just imagining the ways they could word it.
Do you have your own percentage take for this matchup?
My percentage take is that I'm just going off what you said. Just generally more often than not, it seems like Mickey wins. I don't feel like putting a percentage on it because I don't feel like I still don't think like I know enough because I haven't actually experienced the materials myself. I do trust you because you have brought up exactly where things have come from. And
my stash in G1 when I get back in there, it is humongous. Like I had like okay, so like we did the in G1 we did like the community blogs, right? For like there was just like top like 5 matches that they had chosen. Like during the last break last year, right? And
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to get on Xehanort versus Palpatine. I kind of like did not like where I put the characters afterwards, and then just kept working on that in months. It was like the most active chat in the entire server, besides the chilling area, like the general. And before I left there, I looked through the whole thing. I just could not find the start of the channel. Like I had so many scans in there, it's ridiculous. Like its own scan server.
So I feel like I can trust your takes.
Speaking of something related, slightly unrelated. Like if they ever do Star Wars versus Kingdom Hearts again, I mean, obviously Xehanort versus Palpatine is my number one.
It's got a good
But I
chance
do
of
kind
happening
of
too.
dig. Yeah, I do kind of dig Terra versus Anakin. Just because of like the student that I mean, they have more than just the proud student who fell, but like you could also make an argument that like Terra versus Vader also works. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing, but you could. I don't know. I just like the matchup. We could probably. I could probably talk to you about that one at another point.
I feel like if Vader comes back, he's probably gonna fight. There's a good chance he'll fight Obito, honestly, because that's his big request right now. But it's not my
It
preferred.
is. I do like that matchup. Agree. Um, a friend who's super hyped for it. At the same time, your stats are in flux right now.
Yeah, that friend. I think I know who you're talking about. Maybe, and he does not like the idea of Obito losing.
No comment on that.
No comment on
But
who should win.
I mean, on who should win, I feel it comes down if you buy the Sidious moving the stars thing. If you do, Vader arguably scales via statements of that he was like near Sidious's level in Episode 6, and that should give him just a decent enough way to like blitz and one shot Obito before Obito does anything relevant.
Oof.
Depending on if you give Obito Jubito. If you give him Jubito, Vader probably still would one shot if you buy the star moving thing. You just like pop him. It'd just be too much of an AP difference, is the point.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. That's the most likely if Vader comes back. I feel like if they do another Star Wars Kingdom Hearts, it's definitely going to be Sheev versus Xehanort.
I would just love that matchup.
It's fairly popular, I want to say.
In my opinion, it's way better than Voldemort for Sheev.
Oh, that's not saying much. Sheev versus Voldemort sounds like just pain. Actually, I don't think I've heard a Voldemort matchup that I don't think sounds like pain.
Some people have argued for Voldemort versus Orochimaru. I tend to like Medusa versus Orochimaru more. Soul Eater Medusa.
Yeah. Because I've heard Voldemort versus like Darth Vader and Sauron, and I don't get it.
Both of those matchups suck. I am gonna just say I'm sorry to anyone who likes those matchups, but come on, they suck.
I agree. I am on the side of Sauron versus the Lich King, though it's not particularly fair.
That one's. I mean, I don't care if that one's not fair. That one's really good.
It's so cool. Like they have a lot of abilities that can bounce off each other, and the connections are good. And I like both of them quite a lot, even if I haven't played World of Warcraft in over a decade.
I haven't touched World of Warcraft since my uncle played it.
Oh, jeez. I imagine that's quite a while ago.
I was pretty much 8 years old when that happened. So, yeah, a long time ago.
And Darth Vader, he's got options better than fucking Voldemort.
I mean, he has a massive list way better than Voldemort.
Yeah, I mean, imagine they do Voldemort versus Ebony Maw.
Anyway, anything else you'd like to put on this matchup specifically?
Well, normally at this point I would just talk about what I want to see from the episode, like in the animation.
Oh,
but
sure, we can do that.
As far as I'm thinking, the only thing I'd really want is that it's just a fast-paced battle, showing off a good deal of force abilities and magical Final Fantasy bonanzas. but I
I
can't think
fear
of.
the ending might be something akin to like time being stopped and then Mickey killing him during the time stop.
Yo,
I don't know. I feel like we've had stuff like that before, and I mean it would totally work for this fight, but it's just not my preferred ending for the
King
fight.
Mickey does the Zalamel's critical edge from Soul Calibur 6. Let's go. Oh wait, no, that's different. That's the Zalamel like. Oh no, I'm thinking Soul Calibur 4. No, yeah, that works. I don't know how they're gonna end it. I feel it's gonna feel weird either way. Just seeing Mickey Mouse brutally murder someone.
I'd be surprised if we got a Yoda win, to be honest. Like, it would have to be some sort of speed feat I'm completely unaware of. There is, like, okay, so there is an argument for, like, a really high end speed feat in Star Wars from a thing called the
Is
World
it the
Razor,
World
but, like,
Razor? Oh yeah.
yeah. But Yoda has no way to scale to it. Sidious just doesn't scale, and Yoda doesn't scale either. The only character you can really scale to that is, like, the Bedlam, the ones are, like, super high end god tiers.
The characters who don't need direct scaling because they just scale above everything regardless.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I think Versus Battle Wiki still uses the World Razor, but I don't remember.
But they don't apply it to, like, Sidious. I think they only apply it to, like, Abeloth and, like, Luke.
Right, and obviously Yoda doesn't scale to Abeloth.
Right. I don't know, other stuff I could see in the episode, like, Yoda has... I'd like to see what, like, Yoda did, like, Mace kind of did in, like, the 2003 miniseries with, like, force lifting. But, like, I'm not sure how you do that with Mickey. Mickey, to my knowledge, doesn't have any moves that, like, copy him. He can't really summon guys to fight for him. He's not Xehanort.
Yeah, and we've seen the location they're fighting in. There's not much of an environment to utilize.
You can maybe make the argument he might rip off a good chunk of the platform and just hurl it.
Do you think they could like fight like they could travel to other worlds within Kingdom Hearts because of where?
Oh, that'd be rad. The problem, well, where they're fighting is it's kind of like it's this like location where like Sora and like Keyblade wielders go often. It's kind of like an internal world in a way. Think of like you know how like Naruto has like an internal realm or Ichigo has an internal realm when they like talk to their like inner other halves, I guess, or like it's kind of like that.
Oh, like when Naruto talks to his the puppy.
Mm-hmm. And they're like in this place with like the gate and like it used to be there was like water around it. Kind of like that. You could argue that there is some content that would suggest it's just like a separate dimension. I mean, but I'm still not sure how they would do a transition into another place. I don't see Mickey and like Yoda being like these reality busting characters. Even if they have like really high end AP, their destructive capacity sucks.
Yeah.
So like, well, Yoda probably has better destructive capacity, but like I don't see it being like enough destructive capacity to literally do a Broly.
It would feel weird if there's more dimension hopping in Yoda versus Mickey Mouse than in Wally versus Archie.
Or even Hulk versus Broly.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I get your point.
At least with Hulk versus Broly, they didn't start the fight on a highway to other universes.
Right.
Oh man, there's so much I wanted out of Wally versus Archie, and I liked the episode, but I wish they did more.
I'm curious as to how they'll handle the lightsaber bashing with. I mean, we already saw a little bit of it, but like, I've seen some people say, "Oh, why can't the lightsaber just cut through the Keyblade?" But the Keyblade's not like just a piece of metal. It's kind of like an abstract weapon, similar to the heart. It is metallic. Don't get me wrong, but like, I don't see the lightsaber somehow like melting it through it like Qui-Gon did through like the doors at the beginning of like episode 1.
Yeah, I get that it looks weird, especially to people who aren't super versed with Kingdom Hearts. And it would be weird if they don't explain in the episode for like people who don't know. But like, how else are they gonna? What else are they gonna do? Because like, they can't do a thing like with Kakashi where they just put, or can they do that? Just put like an effect over the Keyblade.
Maybe, but like. Keep in mind what I mentioned way earlier in the video. Sora's Keyblade was hit by a beam of light from like Kingdom Hearts that like literally the energy that makes universes, and like it didn't even break. No cracks either.
Which is why I'm just, like for a casual audience, right, who would not know that and who might just skip the analysis and go to the fight. Is there like a way that they could communicate the Keyblade being able to resist intense heat based on what has been happening in the series?
They could just mention like I'm not sure how they would do a line of this, but you could just say that it scales to the durability of the. I mean, I know for the fight itself, right? I'm not sure how Mickey would convey that, but if they found a way for Mickey to just say the Keyblade is equal to me or something like that, that might suffice, maybe.
Oh my god, imagine Mickey having all this serious dialogue with his voice. Oh wait, that's probably a thing in Kingdom Hearts that people have to deal with.
You know, I do like that they started with the whole like, oh, you're a king, well, you must be a master. Honestly, that's the thing that's kind of sold me at least on accepting the episode, because initially I was a bit down that it like replaced Xehanort versus Palpatine for the moment. But yeah, but just the dialogue so far has kind of sold me.
Yeah, I like the dialogue, though I'm wondering if they're going to have Yoda speak in nothing but Yoda speak, because I know Ben really loves the originals, but he does not like the prequels, and in the originals, Yoda speak was fairly inconsistent. Like, there are plenty of times that he does not use it at all.
They might just end up going with what the casuals are more used to. I could totally see the Yoda speech happening, or they might just keep Yoda's dialogue to a minimum.
That could work.
Although I
too.
don't feel like, yeah, but I feel like there has to be a sufficient amount of dialogue. I don't feel like this fight would go longer than 2 minutes. I might be wrong, but I feel like it's going to be one of the shorter animations we've gotten for 3D.
Why does that
for
sound,
SFM as well.
Why does that sound disappointing to me? I don't like the idea of that 2 minute long fight. That's like Beast versus Goliath.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's objectively going to be 2 minutes, but I feel like 2 minutes would, like, for these two type of characters, 2 minutes would be enough.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see where the chips fall. Because I don't know what they're gonna do. I hope I'll be pleasantly surprised with the fight.
They might end up, in order to make it to spice it, they might end up taking a lot of the magic just Sora can use in gameplay and have Mickey use it in the fight to spice things up. That might allow them to extend it slightly.
I'm honestly, because I woke up like a couple hours ago, so it didn't really hit me until now. I'm just glad this is not a Marvel versus DC opener. It's a Disney versus
I'm also glad
Disney.
for that. I've seen some people make the joke that if Yoda wins, it's Yoda taking back Star Wars from Disney.
Well, that's exactly why Mickey's gonna win.
Disney's got to show Star Wars who's boss.
Imagine they start the episode sponsored by Disney.
That would be something. There's a lot of potential for jokes here. I feel.
I hope the episode's it's funny enough.
Oh, now that I think about it, they're probably going to have some sort of mention of the. I forget his actual name, but you know what people have called Baby Yoda from The Mandalorian.
Oh.
I know they're not connected, but it feels like such a wasted opportunity to not make a mention of that, even like for a second.
I could see them bringing it up, like they talk about Yoda, and like his species, and they show like Yaddle and the baby Yoda, and in reference to like other members of his species, and then Boomstic's like, oh, look at this one, that's so fucking cute. But I don't know how they do it in the fight, unless Yoda spawns a baby Yoda out of nowhere with the Force and throws it at Nikki. But I feel like that's more something Plagueis would do, making life.
You know, now that they're fighting, that we know that they're fighting in an area where it's just two of them, that removes stuff like Beast. Like, I think they brought it briefly up in Obi-Wan. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like the Force can be used to control animals.
Yeah.
There actually is an ability that, like, Yoda should have that, but I feel like it's something that, I mean, like, at least in the location they're at, that's impossible to work with.
Well, I mean, he's gonna have to talk to an animal anyway.
I was just about to say, unless they have him try to control Mickey for being a mouse, which I don't know how I would feel about that.
I just imagine Mickey saying, like, you think you could do that just because I'm an animal? That's kind of racist. And then we have someone in Mickey Mouse's voice saying that's kind of racist. God damn it. So I think that's all there is, unless you want to share what you want next episode to be. Because
Next episode,
I'm imagining it's
um,
going to be a Marvel versus DC next episode.
I'd rather it not be, but it probably will be. I don't know. I feel like Cloud's episode should be like the second half of season two.
Do you
I
want
don't
to
know
do him
why, but it just
to be
feels
episode
like it should be.
150?
Maybe, but like, um, Ryuko versus Shadow hopefully will not be. I know it's not been officially stated to be Shadow, but I feel like it's just at this point it has to be
Oh,
Shadow.
I'm happy with you ending your sentence there. I hope Ryuko versus Shadow will not be. Because I'm hoping it won't be. I'm hoping it'll be like Ryuko versus, like, Gaiva or Masane or Mordred Pendragon. Someone she can, like, have a sword fight with, as opposed to someone who's going to be punching her sword.
Mordred Pendragon. Mordred is a new idea. I haven't heard about that one before.
Oh,
It
that's one
does sound
that
one that could work.
it's one that I thought of when I was thinking of like fate matchups. It's like because they're both I don't want to say test tube babies because it's not quite right, but they are sort of not
I know
really all
Mordred's
human.
backstory. Mordred's backstory
Yeah, she's the
is a
food
weird,
baby.
yeah, very weird
Uh,
origin.
I think it works.
Um,
I think you could easily have dialogue with them, especially because Mordred is such a cunt.
You know what I
Um,
want now? I want Nomura and Nasu to work together on something.
I mean, it would be very confusing.
The world needs it.
I mean, at that point, just make them work on a movie and have Michael Bay direct it. So not only is it confusing, it'll also give you a headache if you're not paying attention.
Now, Nemesis, are you actually trying to wipe out humanity?
Maybe I am.
Oh, that explains the whole enemy shtick.
Oh god. You know, the Fate world really isn't that confusing, if I'm to be honest. But I have been,
Oh, I agree. It's not.
I have been
I
with
think
the
that,
series
like,
for over a decade, so or not over a decade.
I think Grand Order probably slightly complicated things slightly. I don't think too much. I really want a fake character this season. I really want one. It doesn't matter if it's Saber. I'll just take a fake character.
I know I'm gonna get shit for saying this. I do not like Doctor Doom versus Gilgamesh.
It's fine with me. I just want a fake character.
I love a fake character. That's why I suggested Mordred for Ryuko. Even if it's maybe a little bit unfair when you consider that Mordred fought a giant tree with a galaxy in it. But that's unimportant. But I don't like any of Gilgamesh's matchups. I'll be honest.
What are your thoughts on Gilgamesh versus Gilgamesh? And I'm referring to Final Fantasy Gilgamesh.
Yeah. It's funny, but when it comes to a fake character to fight Final Fantasy Gilgamesh, legitimately Musashi works a lot better because they got the whole hopping between universes to fight people thing. I don't think Musashi's gonna pull out a win in that case just because of the list of abilities that Final Fantasy Gilgamesh has, but I would definitely probably prefer Musashi just because they got the dimension hopping fighting people thing going on.
I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about is you mentioned Soul Calibur earlier, and I have briefly brought up Algol to you. Do you feel like there's any matchup that could work for him?
I mean, like, I did joke, but Onaga does kind of work, but at the same time, Mortal Kombat in Versus, I don't want, like...
I feel like no one would watch that one.
Yeah.
That seems like it would be like a season 1 episode, really.
Yeah, it does. Plus, like, Onaga's got Gargos, if I'm being honest. I feel like that works, just, like, aesthetically.
I feel like it could work, like, Algol could work if, like, the next MK game has, like, Onaga in it.
I think Algol could work if they bring him back. I like Algol, as an idea, but they haven't done anything with him beyond he's got a really cool critical finish, and that's about it.
Yeah, he's a very wasted potential.
Yeah, I love Algol's concept, and he legitimately, I mean, Algol versus Gilgamesh does work, but I mean, I wouldn't want to kill Algol that badly.
I mean, maybe we could get Kingsley to nerf Gilgamesh.
No, we don't need that.
No, I'm kidding. Love you, Kingsley.
Well, I mean, you know, Kingsley could nerf Outerversal Gilgamesh. because I don't know how I feel about that. The whole idea that
I really don't like those arguments.
because like, it's
I
just
really do
Enuma
not like
Elif
the arguments.
affects the root, and the root is like above infinite dimensional pancakes, something like that.
The argument I've heard is like way worse. It's just like
Oh,
arguing that the basically like the moon still has no concept of
oh,
space
for
and time
fuck's
because
sake!
that somehow means it's universal.
I mean, yeah, he was in the area which is outside of space and time and is supposed to erase the existence of anything within it. I don't think that counts though.
Yeah, I don't think that counts for anything really.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I mean,
this was fun. This was
yeah,
fun.
it
Thank you
was.
for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I'll be happy to have you back. If Palpatine vs Xehanort happens too, when it happens, it'll probably happen.
I mean, it's happening as a community death battle, and I will be putting an input on it. It's just going to be really long, so it'll take me a while to type
Yeah, and Ben and Chad are not gonna look at
it. Yep. Such is the fate of Xehanort versus Palpatine.
that. Ben and Chad just not gonna look at it.
I know Liam likes it, but I mean the idea. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I hope it happens not only for your sake, but because I think it'll be really cool.
it's just a really good match.
And I don't even really like know the connections. I like Sheev, and I don't know. I don't really know Xehanort, but it just feels right. If you know what I mean. It just.
I'll give you the full rundown of that another time. Possibly even later today.
Yeah.
A question for you before I have to go myself.
I
I believe you had. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, did you have like a video on like your most wanted for season 8 or no?
Oh no, I made a video on like 20 ideas, like death battle ideas that I think could be in season 8, but not necessarily like a wish list or like what I think would happen.
Well, could I somehow worm out of you your most wanted for season 8?
Like that's probable?
Yeah.
I don't think I have a most wanted that's... I mean, the most likely that I actually want is fucking, like, Kamen Rider Decade versus Captain Marvelous or Ultraman versus Zone Fighter, and those are pretty far down on the likelihood scale, so...
I do have to be going myself. I'd rather did enjoy this, like I said. And like I said, I hope Yoda gets at least maybe that 20%. I mean, if you're gonna ask who I prefer would win, I'm gonna be honest. I actually prefer Yoda,
Well,
but I
because
do
Yoda's
not
cool.
see him getting him above 20%.
Yeah. Alright, so, yeah, see you, mate. Have a good one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And I'm going to stop recording
Thank you for having me.
in a moment. Goodbye, people.